Okay then, so when it comes to eating when you're out in the hills, when you're wild camping, obviously our lunches can just be carried along with us. So we can just have a little snack bag, which we don't have to cook from ideally. So we can just eat it on the move or just eat it when we're having a little break. Our breakfast and our evening meals are generally the ones that we're going to be cooking, aren't they? And to keep it super simple, you can either obviously cook a proper meal, or you can use things like these, so dry rations. Now, considerations are, if you're going to cook a proper meal, then you're going to have to carry all that food, and you're going to have to carry the cooking equipment to be able to cook it as well. So the cooking equipment alone, it's going to be a lot more kit and equipment, pans, pots, much bigger to be able to make a decent meal, which isn't too bad if there's a group of you. So if there's 3 or 4 of you going out on the hill, and you can share the load between you with a decent sized stove or multiple stoves and multiple pots and pans, no problem whatsoever. If it's just you on your own, then it might rack up the weight and size of your pack quite quickly, or even if you're just sharing it with one other person, it might become a bit of a pain. There's also the consideration of actually carrying the food and keeping it fresh. So if you're carrying it all day, obviously that's not going to be ideal if you've got meat that you're going to be cooking. So a lot of the time when you're cooking meals out and about, it's going to be vegetarian, because that's not going to perish whilst you're out and about on the hill. So cooking pasta with some veg, having some vegetarian meals is going to be the best option in that sense. If you're wanting to cook meats, then you could plan your route so that you drop into a valley to a shop, collect some meats, and then walk up a hill to where you're going to wild camp, for example. And it might be 1.5 to 2 hours walk from the shop before you start cooking, and that would be, you know, workable, depending on the weather, of course, for carrying that meat up to that location to then cook. But obviously, like I mentioned, you've got to consider what you're going to cook it with and all the additional equipment. Personally, I don't go down that route. If I'm going to be camping and cooking meals, I use a double stove, and it's usually because I'm camping with the family and I've got all the big pots and pans and I don't need to carry anything, you know, it's all there with the car. When I'm going wild camping, I use rations, and the reason I use rations is because all I need to do then is carry a stove that can boil water. And I've got multiple stoves that can boil water. They're super lightweight, super small, and they boil it up very quickly. So I can make nice hot drinks quickly, and I can obviously boil water up to put into my meals. Mega easy. So the stoves I've got, I'm going to go through these. Let's move out I'll tell you what, we'll go through the food first of all. So you've got different types of rations, dry rations or wet rations. This is what we call them in the military anyway. These are dry rations here, and they require water. So they're dehydrated essentially. So they require you to fill them up with boiling water, seal them off, and leave them for 5 to 10 minutes while they soak up all the moisture, boil, and then they're good to go to eat. Downside of this is you need to collect water, purify it, boil it, to then put it into the rations. Obviously not a massive problem in the UK because you've got lots of water sources, and when you're wild camping, ideally you want to camp near a water source. So it's not a huge problem in the UK, but if you're somewhere else that's not got a great amount of water running down, then you know it's not ideal. On the flip side, you can get wet rations, which basically means they've got the fluid inside. So they're not dehydrated, they've actually got fluid in there. They're hydrated rations. You can eat them cold, so you don't have to put any water in them. And if you're eating them warm, all you do is put the actual bag into your pot, boil it up, and then you can open it up and eat it. It means that you don't have to collect more fluid, more water to hydrate the food in the first place. The downside of this though is because they're carrying fluid, they are a little bit more heavy. So when you're carrying days worth of rations and they're all hydrated rations, it is a lot heavier than carrying dehydrated. So that's just some considerations when you're getting the rations. When you're eating the rations, it's ideal to have a nice long spork, so spoon fork, really long handle, and that's just because then you can get into the bottoms of it without having to dip your hands in there and get your hands caked in food. Stoves. Let's have a look at stoves. I'll move hydration out of the way. So I've got 3 stoves. First of all, my trusty Jetboil. This is my favourite. I've had this probably 12, 15 years. I bought this when I was in training, 2009. 16 years I've had this, and it's still working really well. So, all packs down together. Nice and easy. You've got a little plastic cup on the top. You've got a little orange frame for your actual gas. So when you clip your gas in, you've got a nice solid base for it to sit onto. You've got a good lever and you've got an igniter as well. A lot of the time these igniters go. I don't know how mine's still going after 16 years. So many people have igniters that break within a couple of weeks or even a couple of uses. It's crazy that it's still going. But essentially what we've got is gas attached to the actual stove section, and then all we do is attach the actual pot, clip it in, good to go. Super fast. Heat up your water, boil it up, open up your ration, pour it in, good to go. Nice and easy, quick for hot chocolate, everything like that. Cools down pretty quick as well. Ready to go and pack away. So that's the Jetboil. One of my preferred stoves, to be honest, and it's the one that I use most of the time because it's so easy, it's compact. I don't have to faff around with any additional pots or anything like that. All I need to do is use it for boiling water and I'm good to go. So yeah, that's the Jetboil. The next gas stove I've got is this, which is a Pocket Rocket. So all we do is attach the gas to it. This doesn't have an igniter, so we do need a lighter for it or a flint and steel. And we need a separate pot. Now I've had a few pots with this, but this one I bought recently and it is absolutely fantastic. So the downside of this is when you stick a big pot on the top, it's easy to knock it off, knock it over. However, let me bring this closer. I bought this fancy pot that's actually got 3 slots in it, which works really well with this stove because actually now what happens is I can bang my stove onto it and it attaches really well. So it doesn't wobble off, doesn't fall off. And it's got these ridges as well, same as the Jetboil, to help to distribute that heat a lot quicker and set it to boil a lot quicker. So, super easy, super useful. Lid on the top, good to go. Quite a nice size, spot on. And when I'm packing it away, obviously I can store the gas in the actual pot itself, and I've managed to pack a few little extra bits in there. So usually I pack my gas in there, and I pack lighter in there, and a few other little bits, so it's quite handy. So that's the kind of gas stoves. We've got the Jetboil and then we've got the Pocket Rocket with the pot, both sold separately. But then when I've been in Norway and the weather is flipping freezing, the problem you've got is this gas only goes down to a certain temperature. Let me just see if I've got the actual temperature here. It doesn't say. So it doesn't actually say on there the temperature. But the problem is if it's really super cold, then this gas just will not work in really cold environments. So that's where we need to use fluid fuel. Okay, so rather than gas, we've got actual fuel there, fluid fuel, and I use this stove. And this is absolutely amazing. So it's a good size stove, and all we do is attach this to the SIG bottle via our little pressurizer, which is in the top. So we attach the pump into the top of the SIG bottle, attach the actual stove to it. We want to pressurize it, so we pump it all up. There's no fuel in there at the minute. Pump it all up so that it actually starts to come through. Use a lighter or a flint and steel and it's good to go. So obviously, that's just considerations for really cold environments. What we don't want to do is go into a cold environment with a gas stove and for us to not be able to actually use it because it's freezing cold. I've never had that, to be honest, in the UK, but it can happen where the gas becomes less effective, especially in in cold conditions in Scotland. So what I do is I tend to place it onto some form of insulated base. So rather than sticking it straight into the snow, for example, which wouldn't be a very good idea, I've got a small piece of foam mat that I cut out and I just sit it on top of that. This is ideal, especially in the cold. You can basically use this as a heat shield to place around the stove. So when you've got your pot there, all you do is simply place this around the stove and around the pot itself, and it really just holds that heat and gets the pot heated up super fast. Obviously in cold conditions, you've got to do everything you can to retain that heat and to be as effective and efficient as possible for boiling. So those are the 3 stoves that I use. Super simple. In Norway, we use these rations as well. So we just melt snow, boil it up, and then bang it into these. That's all I do. Super simple, just use ration packs. I rarely ever try and cook anything, especially if I'm out wild camping doing expeds. I just don't like the faff, the hassle of thinking about exactly what to cook. I'm bad enough as it is in my house, never mind taking it with me on the hill. And obviously you've got to think about the perishables side of it. So if you've got meat or fish or eggs, you know, I mean, I don't know why you carry eggs because they probably break. But essentially, if you've got any of that sort of stuff, it's going to perish, isn't it, in the warmth. So even if you're out in the winter, it's still going to be a flipping nightmare. And you might end up with stuff freezing, going frozen solid. You don't really want to be carrying raw meat with you. That's just not ideal, is it? If a bag splits and raw meat's in your bag. Just get away from all that side of things. Go to ration packs, super easy, super simple. Or drop into a pub en route in a valley if you can, or use a hostel. Or obviously if you're abroad, you can use the huts and stuff, and usually the huts, you can order meals and bits like that. So yeah, either get some cooked meals for yourself, people have cooked, or use some rations, and that's basically cooking and stoves.